Welcome everyone to today's webinar titled Implementing Agile-Waterfall Hybrid Theory and Reality. My name is Ben Hurampli. I'm a pre-sales colleague at Inland Software. I will be the host for today's webinar. And let's get started then. So this is what's on the agenda today. A short introduction to Agile-Waterfall Hybrid. I will assume that you know what Agile is and Waterfall is separately, so I won't be talking about the two methodologies at all. I'll just be talking about the hybrid itself. And then I will present some hybrid process models, pros and cons, benefits and challenges of developing in a hybrid, using a hybrid methodology. And then the when, why, and how to use this Agile Waterfall Hybrid method, what we recommend. Okay, and then a live demonstration will follow at the end. A little bit of information about today's webinar. The live demonstration will be followed by a Q&A session as always, so you can type your questions into the little box on your GoToWebinar control panel, and I will do my best to answer all of them. Also, a recording will be available on our website, so anybody you know who couldn't attend, you can send them out the recording link, and you can also register for our upcoming webinars. We will be at the MedTech next week, so you guys can come visit our booth. And then next week's webinar will be titled Next Generation ALM Scaling Mature Processes to Cut Development Time and Costs. So if that's of interest for you, please register and join next week at the same time. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. So like I said, I'm not going to go into the Agile separately and Waterfall separately and what they are and how to use them. I'm going to just assume that you know. And then also the main difference, I just want to clarify that the main difference between a waterfall and a V model is that in the waterfall model, the testing activities are carried out after the development activities are over, usually in a perfect world. And on the other hand, in the V model, the testing activities start with the first stage itself. So in other words, the waterfall model is a continuous process, while the V model is kind of a simultaneous process. So in this context, the V model and the waterfall model have pretty similar challenges, and it's kind of easier to graph the hybrid model on a V model than on a waterfall model. So in the context of this webinar, I might be using V model and waterfall interchangeably. Okay. They're complementary. So, okay, now to talk about the hybrid development method. The V model and the Agile methodologies are actually complementary for complex developments. So they're very different fundamentally, but they can actually lead to benefits that can't be achieved by using one single method. So when combined correctly, obviously. Okay, and then I will be showing you our Agile Waterfall Hybrid template in the demonstration, and I will be showing you how you can actually overcome many of the challenges that people face by using specifically only the V model or waterfall or the Agile development processes. Okay, so these are the hybrid process models that I've drawn up here. So the traditional waterfall or V model that you can see on the top left here, sorry. So the 4 or 5 phases: IT, demand, requirements, so the design phase, development, QA, test, and release. And like I said, the waterfall is kind of a continuous process where one follows the other phase. And in the V model is more of a simultaneous process. Those are the main differences. And then what you see in the middle is a waterfall with Agile implementation. So that kind of allows you to apply Agile processes into a waterfall project, and then you can split traditional waterfall development cycles the cycle into smaller incremental waterfall models, or is a series of mini V's that you can see in the middle here. And then you can alter product requirements and make some changes along the way. So that's that already implements some of the benefits of the agile processes. And then the one that you see on the bottom right, waterfall with overlapping phases, that's just a variation of the classic waterfall, and it suggests a fair amount of overlap, as you can see, between the phase of the software development lifecycle. And the approach to development is considered here suitable for projects that require more insight between each layer of development as the development lifecycle progresses, from requirements to test. And with this method, the documentation can change. So what you define at the beginning, and it encourages continuity between the development phases. So that's also kind of a combination of the two. And then this is another example where you can see it's a V model with agile processes implemented, agile methodologies. This is a concept which is best for showing you how you can use agile while developing your software and kind of still maintain compliance in safety critical sectors. So you can define your user stories, user story tasks, epics, but you still test every part of the modules that you define. Sorry, I have a question here. Okay, I will try to answer all the questions that I receive at the end. So let me continue. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so the maintaining compliance and safety critical while still using agile processes, agile methodologies, so you can still develop in kind of a Scrum environment while maintaining a V model framework. Okay. So moving on, and then another example is where you actually you have an embedded development, and you can use agile methodologies to develop your software, and then still maintain or still develop your hardware in a waterfall method, and then combine the two. So you have your product development and embedded product development that is broken into two processes. One is the agile for software, and one is the waterfall for hardware or V model. Okay, and then when, why, how to use the Agile-Waterfall Hybrid. These are just kind of our recommendations or our examples. So for the why, when, and how, first the why. So the main reasons why you would use a hybrid model, when it can be used. As you can see, so shorten design, analysis, and planning, but define project frames. So including budget and time of delivery and things like that. Still maintain compliance with standards, and it usually results in more collaboration than simple V model or waterfall. And then the when, in complex product developments. So for hardware manufacturing and service with software, where what I showed on the previous slide, where you combine hardware for waterfall and then software with agile, or complex end-tier application development. So for example, a graphical user interface, you could develop that with an agile Scrum method. That's actually what we do here as well. And then the back-end technology, which could be needs to be maybe more robust and stable, is developed with waterfall or V model. It's just an example. Okay, and then how? So nothing is completely predefined here, but these are some tips that you can use. What we recommend, the planning, design, and requirements definition can be done with waterfall, but development and test in short sprints with agile Scrum. Implement new types of communication channels and a proper collaborative solution to support information exchange and traceability. So that's pretty important. and then involve product owners and clients into the communication regularly. So that kind of results in more collaboration with the client primarily, and then define standard compliance expectations and focus on them in the design planning phase. Okay. And then benefits of using a hybrid approach. On this slide, I included the advantages of Agile and advantages of Waterfall. Some of the advantages and how hybrid kind of tries to get the best of both worlds and tries to take out the advantages of both, which is pretty difficult to achieve. But that's what it aims to do. So advantages of Agile, it actually reduces cost because you can kind of adapt to changes quicker, better collaboration and communication with product owners and clients, increased customer satisfaction is usually also a result. And since you can adapt to changes quicker, you're more responsive for market changes and customer demands. Yeah. Okay, and then the advantages of Waterfall, on the other hand, are what you see here, easy to manage due to the rigidity of the model with clear deadlines. So if you define everything at the beginning, everything is much more clear, but it's also it can be a con as well, not just a pro. And simple and easy to understand and use. The process is predefined. Everybody knows what they need to follow. And then each phase is run through once with no overlap, so it allows for thorough QA at the end of each phase for the V model, and then works well on small projects with fixed requirements. Okay, and then hybrid tries to combine the two. Also, for the hybrid development, some pros and some benefits that you don't really have when using only one of the two. The people can use their preferred development method. So teams can kind of adapt to what they want to do, and if you give them freedom, then they can adapt. They can choose, which isn't always good, but you can set the preferred development method, and that increases efficiency and especially motivation in the teams. Okay, and of course, easier adaptation to changes and focus on continuous delivery. Reuse of software code is also made easier here. When it comes to similar products or when you have to focus on future products, it is made easier. Okay, and then of course I have to talk about some of the challenges. Obviously, there are cultural and organizational differences. Some people who are pure Agile won't want to change. So you have to change management is difficult if you're trying to move from one methodology to another or trying to combine the two. That's always going to be a challenge. And then the technical challenges, the dependency tracking and overseeing of complex structures and hierarchies and clarity of waterfall in Agile when you combine the two. And then, of course, merging both approaches in the releases. So if you have an embedded software development or an embedded product development, for example, and you're trying to merge both approaches in the releases, that's always a technical challenge. When you use one for software and the other for hardware. Okay. All right, and then let's try to see how Codebeamer, its application lifecycle management solution, can try to fix these challenges. Okay, before I get started, there's a question I would like to ask, so if you could please vote on the poll that I just sent out. Okay, great. Thanks for voting. I see a lot of you are actually looking to manage a safe, so multiple agile projects. It's interesting. And what methodology do you currently use? If you develop software, then software or hardware, or embedded, whichever you use. Okay, thank you. All right, and now let me jump into Codebeamer then. It's a browser-based tool, as you can see. So I'm actually in Codebeamer now, and you can manage projects here. And let me just create a new project, show you how easy it is to get started. We actually have templates that you can use. So if you actually go to sas.codebeamer.com, you can register for a free 30-day trial and start evaluating if this is interesting for you. And then you can create a new project, reuse project templates, and you can also start out by selecting one of the templates that we define here. So I will actually create a new Agile-Waterfall Hybrid template. So I will show you what our template includes. The name is fine. I'm gonna check include all work items and documents and wiki pages. So that means you also actually have some sample data when creating this project that you can work around with. You can also deselect this obviously, and then it will be a completely blank project. For safe, I saw a lot of you answered with you're looking to manage multiple levels. We actually have a separate template for that, and we have several webinars about that. So you guys can check that out on our website. Okay, and now that I've created this project, I see kind of a description of what is included in this template and how you can use it, how to configure it. So this template can say the following features, and it kind of combines hardware and software as a one product development. So this is just an example. You can obviously configure everything to map your processes, how you want to work, but this is a good example which saves you a lot of time because it's a pre-configured template. So it has waterfall-based hardware development. Here's kind of a description of that as well, of the waterfall method, and then the V model waterfall, and then how this is implemented into the system, and then agile software development. So this is how it combines the two. And then obviously you can, like I said, map these processes how you'd like. This is one of the examples that we provide. Okay, each project has an integrated documents management, so you can upload and version files that you'd like, but you actually work around in the trackers. So, and this is where you map your processes. So as you can see, if I go into the trackers, those are the centerpiece of Codebeamer. What you see here on the left-hand side, and that is where you do your actual work, and that's where you can map your processes. So it starts out from the bottom with number 1 and goes down to the bottom, or starts out at the top, sorry, and goes down to the bottom. You have your product requirements, which is kind of like the highest level requirements, and then you have hardware requirements and software requirements, and then hardware architecture, software user stories, and then hardware and software tasks. So it's kind of shown better here. So for product requirements to hardware requirements and software requirements, hardware tasks and software tasks, software user stories, and then software tasks. So, sorry. And then everything kind of comes together on the roadmap, which I'll be showing you. And then the testing and verification of the two are also handled separately. So you can kind of test separately for software in Agile way, and then still test hardware in a V model, or so in a continuous process, or in a waterfall way. Okay, so let me show you first. I will go into the product requirements. This is just sample data that the template automatically creates for you. This is the document view and what it looks like. So this is where you can import or define your requirements directly in the system. So I can just import my Microsoft Word document where I have my product requirements that I received from a customer or from wherever I receive them, import them here and start working with them. And then what's really important is the traceability browser that we provide. It's a dedicated browser to kind of show the dependencies and view the gapless end-to-end traceability between all of your items and through your entire life cycle in your process. So if I start out from product requirements, I can then map my hardware requirements and then further map my hardware architecture and then hardware tasks. And then I will see my hardware lifecycle. If I click on show dependencies, I can see from my highest level product requirement that I've defined, I've derived 3 hardware requirements. From there, I define my hardware architecture, and then from there on, I can actually map to both levels. I can map my hardware tasks. So I can define what I need for my hardware requirements and what I need for my hardware architecture. And then you can do the same for software. So if I go back into my product requirements, I have a requirement here, media player, that meets the current market requirements. And then with the plus sign from this requirement, I can actually derive my specific software requirements, any that I have. So I've already defined, let's say I've defined my hardware requirements, and then I can split it into software requirements as well. And then this will automatically be mapped and referenced back to this product requirement if I save it. So if I go into the relations, I can see the software requirement that I've just created. Okay, and that way, if in the traceability browser, I can map my entire product development or just one of the 2 that I choose. So the traceability browser here is pretty comprehensive. As you can see, you can map it to map your entire process, and then you can save your life cycle if you want. If you want to trace through the similar things all the time, then you can save that setting and just load it from here. I don't have any saved because this is a template, obviously, that we just created, but that way you can show the dependencies between the same items much quicker. Okay, and then on the roadmap, I have my releases defined. So if I open up, I have hardware and software development separately. If I open up hardware development, I can see I have my milestones defined. So define hardware requirements, design hardware architecture, build hardware, and test hardware. So the basic milestones. This can also be configured. It's just a template that is pre-configured for you. And then for software development, I have 2 versions or 2 releases, 1.0 beta, and then I have 2 sub-sprints, design and implementation sprint and QA sprint. And then in 2.0, I have another sprint. So as you can see, this is broken down into releases and sprints, my software development. And then if I go into the hardware development, I drill down into specifically this hardware development. If I open up the release Gantt chart, I can actually plan this release the way I want. Okay, this has been mapped to an interesting date. Let's say I change this here. Okay, so that kind of helped. Okay, so I can kind of map it this way. Just by dragging and dropping, I can map this here, and then I can map all the other ones right after another in a waterfall way. So I can map my entire hardware development and then plan my milestones one after the other. So I'm going to move these ones back over to where it actually makes sense. And then I've actually planned the release dates and releases of these items. Milestones, sorry. Okay, and then obviously you can add further maintenance milestone or things like that, and that would be something that just lasts until you maintain your product. And then after your entire hardware development is complete, you can add a maintenance phase at the end. And if I go back into the roadmap and I go into the software development, I can see a burn down chart that will be generated as soon as there's enough data in the system. And then I can see kind of my releases and milestones under that as well. Okay, and then I can also, for example, if I go back one level, what I can do is I can create a new release called product development and kind of put everything under that. And everything that is kind of part of the product development can then be put under this release. So if I go into the release planner, this is the statistical kind of dashboard overview of my releases. If I go into the planner, I can rearrange these and put one under the other, and also plan items that I want to finish in these milestones, or like requirements that I want to complete, or tasks that I have that I want to finish in these milestones, and then that will be calculated here. Or anything that I want to complete for my software in these releases or sprints. So if I go into the release planner, I have this new product development, and I can just drag and drop and put hardware development under the product development and put software development under the product development as well. And then I have these user stories here that are not assigned yet, and I can just say, okay, this user story is going to be finished in this sprint. This user story is going to be finished in 2.0. And I can kind of map everything to and plan everything where I want to complete them. Okay, and then if I go back to the dashboard, I can now say I have an overall statistic of how my product development is doing, and then I can see how my sub phases or sub developments are doing, how my hardware development doing is, and how my software development is doing. And I can also, if I go into the software development, I can also actually manage the entire release or the entire development on a Kanban board. So as you could see, it was at 0% now. I can just say I'm working on this task, and let's say I've completed it, so I'm submitting it, and then I can kind of complete the task. And it drags everything under it with itself also. So, and you can manage all types of items here. So that was a task, but I have a bug here. Let's say I've completed this bug. I'll just put it in resolve, and I've closed this bug. So what you can see, the workflows of each item type are mapped to the columns of the Kanban board. So you see different different possibilities based on the item type that you're trying to progress or trying to process. So this is a user story, as I can see, based on this icon. If I move that around, I have different options here. Okay, and now if I go back to the dashboard, I can see my software development. I've completed 6 items from the 33. And if I define story points to the items as well, then that will also progress. Or if I have planned effort and spent effort, that will also be shown in the dashboard overall. Okay, so that's basically it. How you can map any type of process that you've defined into Codebeamer here. So you can choose regardless of how you develop your product, the process has to be defined well. And if the process is defined well, then you can actually map this tool to your process. And that will help you in your everyday life when developing your application. Okay, and then now, before I get to questions, I would like to ask you 2 more quick questions. So would you like to receive further information about Codebeamer ALM? Yes or no? Okay, thank you. And before I get to the questions, just the last one. How do you feel about today's webinar? 1 through 5, 5 being informative and valuable, and 1 you didn't like at all. If you vote with the 1, please tell us why in the questions box. And then I will answer all of your questions, or try to answer all of your questions. All right, thank you. I will close the poll. Okay, and now you can ask. Let's see here. Okay, so hello, I don't agree with the statement V model equals waterfall. They are different. Okay, well, I agree with you. They are different. I just kind of tried to build up the webinar in a way that it appeals or kind of addresses both similarly, because I feel like the changes of or the challenges of a waterfall and a V model are quite similar, and that is what we are trying to solve with a hybrid model. Part of what we are trying to solve. So I agree they're not the same. I just wanted to clarify that how I wanted to build up this webinar. Okay, the concept of user stories introduced too low in the hybrid process hierarchy, in my opinion. Okay, I can see why you say that. Again, this is kind of a template. If you still see my screen, it's kind of a template where you can actually change this. So this is just a pre-configuration, kind of a recommendation or a tip. Oh, was this related to a? This was related to a slide, I assume. Yeah, this is for the V framework. Yeah, okay. I'll have to look at that again. Could you please show the test management capability? Sure. Sure, and just 1 second, I'll get to that. Will this webinar be repeated, or how can I have peers see this webinar? Jeff, you can go to intlin.com/webinars. Let me show you really quick. Intlin.com, and we have a tab called Webinars and Events, and in the webinar recordings, it should be uploaded by tomorrow. So up here, you should be able to access this webinar. Okay, so the test management, its requirements are user story based testing actually requirements based testing. So you can derive test cases from your requirements. And what that looks like is if I have hardware requirements or software requirements, it's all a matter of configuration, how you complete your process. But let's say I have software requirements that I want to be testing, this media browser, for example. So what I can do is I can click on this plus sign and I can generate a test case into my software test cases. And that will also create the relationship between the two. So this means here I can see the test case that I've just generated, and if I open up the detailed view, then I can see that this test case is actually verifying here this software requirement. And in CodeViewer, it's manual testing. So the way you do that is you actually define test steps with an action and an expected result, and then you actually execute this test case with a new test run and go through the steps that you've predefined. And then you can type in the actual result. So you go through the action, that is what you're testing, and then you look at the expected result. What were you expecting to happen, or what they defined, who wrote the test was expecting to happen, and then as you execute it, you can type in the actual result that happened. And you can report bugs directly from tests, and that way you have full traceability. And then you can also view the coverage of your requirements on the test coverage browser. So if I access that browser here, I will obviously have everything as not covered, except for one that I've just completed. So you can kind of see the coverage of your requirements with test cases. And it's not been run yet, so as soon as I run it and it has a result, I will see the run and the result here as well. And then I have a statistical overview here of how it's covered. I can filter that for coverage and things like that. And then you can actually view this for an entire release also. Okay, and then for automated testing for software, we have an out-of-the-box integration with Jenkins. So we have a plugin for Jenkins where you can actually, it's integrated with your unit tests, and then the results you can execute your unit tests from Jenkins, and the plugin will feed back the information into Codebeamer. So in that way, you can actually see the coverage and see everything in one place. So you can see the coverage of your manual and automated testing results here. So those are the two types. And then Jenkins is open source, so it integrates with hundreds of other automated testing tools. So that's why we have Jenkins, and it's pretty easy to integrate, or it usually already has a plugin to most of the automated testing tools that we know. Okay. Are there webinars giving an overview? Okay, so does that kind of give you an overview of the test management come out? Sorry, I'm going to go on to the next one. Are there webinars giving an overview about creating, changing templates? That's kind of a configuration issue. So we have a few videos on how you can configure projects, but you can actually, as soon as you've configured one, you can make that available as templates. So if I go into the settings of a project that I have, I just click on the checkbox, and then when you create a new one, you just select this one from the list, and it will automatically copy over the entire configuration into the newly created project, along with inheritance, if you want to inherit the configuration from the original project. But yeah, most of the things, how you can configure, we have quite a few videos on that. We are using Rally on one project. What makes Codebeamer unique? Off the top of my head, I can't remember which one Rally is. So maybe I'll kind of take this offline and get back to you in an email if I can put that together. All right, so I'll get back to you in email. Okay, any more questions? I'll still leave it open for a little bit. If there's anything else that I can show you now, or any other questions that you may have, I'll leave it open. Okay, if no more questions, then everybody have a nice day, and make sure you join us next week at the same time, same place for our next webinar. Thanks again, and have a nice day.